Former President Donald Trump is now a convicted felon. This is historic. Today, a Manhattan jury found Trump guilty of each charge in his hush money trial. The former president was charged with 34 counts of falsifying business records to hide an affair with adult film actor Stormy Daniels near the end of the 2016 presidential campaign. After the verdict, the former president lashed out against Judge Juan Merchan.
We have a country that's in big trouble, but this was a rigged decision right from day one with a conflicted judge who should have never been allowed to try this case, never. And we will fight for our Constitution. This is long from over.
Now, sentencing is set for July 11th. Former President Trump still faces 3 other criminal prosecutions, although those aren't expected to go to trial before the November election. Trump's side is expected to appeal. Joining us to talk about it, former federal prosecutor Phil Hilder, Harris County Judge Mike Fields, University of Houston downtown professor Dr. David Branham, an expert in politics and national political analyst who has appeared on Fox News and The Breakfast Club, Teslin Figueroa. Glad to have you all here. So first of all, your thoughts on this verdict. Were you surprised at all in what the jury decided?
Not really based on the evidence. I wasn't really surprised, but based on the history of America, I think most of us who fight in the area of social justice and looking at how things are different depending on race and class, there was certainly a surprise to think that a former president of the United States would actually be found guilty. But he was found guilty of his peers. I know Michael Cohen. I have always known that him being one of the star witnesses and willing to basically throw him under the bus, that really sealed the deal, in my opinion. So not really surprised.
And Phil, you are a former federal prosecutor. Did you know by the 9.5 hours it took the jury to come to this decision that they were going in the guilty range?
Absolutely. Traditionally, verdicts that come back quickly signify that there's going to be a guilty finding, and here I was not surprised. I kind of figured they'd be out until Friday, but when I heard that the jury was out and ready for a verdict, I knew right away that it was be guilty. And
were there any questions that they asked that also made you lean in the direction of guilty?
I think so. They wanted to hear testimony from Mr. Pecker. Mr. Pecker kind of set the scene from the very beginning that this was a catch and kill operation, if you would, and laid out the story. They wanted to hear that testimony again, and when I heard that, I thought they are taking this seriously, and it doesn't look good for Mr. Trump.
Judge Fields, let's talk to you now about Michael Cohen, who came to this case with problems, a credibility problem, but apparently the jury believed him. He took them into the room with Donald Trump and had intimate details. Your thoughts on why they said, let's believe this guy, even though he's had a history of lying?
Because facts still matter. It turns out facts still matter. Michael Cohen had evidence to back up what it was that he was saying. Donald Trump had made statements in the past, President Trump, indicating that he had done exactly what he was accused of doing. In my mind, this was not a difficult case factually. The proof was evident. I'm surprised that a jury found him guilty. I was shocked when I saw that all 34 counts resulted in a guilty verdict, because I didn't think that a jury would find a former sitting president of the United States guilty of a crime like this.
And Dr. Branham, that's where we are setting history, making history.
Yeah,
Tell us about this.
Well, it's making history, but you know, if you think about Trump supporters, they're different than any other political supporters in history.
That's for sure.
Okay.
I mean, so, you know, I've spoken to 100 Trump supporters this year, and every one of them would have voted not guilty.
Right.
Every one. So I was shocked.
They believe in the man, no matter what.
Exactly. I was shocked that there was not one juror sitting in there that was a Trump supporter, who will come out and just say, I don't care what you say, this isn't true. He said he didn't have an affair with Stormy Daniels. He didn't. He's not guilty. That's what shocked me most about this trial.
Now let's talk about the historic aspect of this trial.
Well, the historic aspect is that we have a former president who's now a convicted felon. I mean, that's something that's never happened before, never came. The closest it came was with Richard Nixon, but he was pardoned before it even started. So they didn't even get to a trial with him. now we have a convicted felon who is a former president. And so how the country is going to take this is going to be something to sit back and watch, because there's a lot of people in this country believe that this is something that should have happened, and there are a lot of people in this country think this is the biggest injustice that ever happened in this country.
And Teslin Figueroa, for those who may say, look, this seemed to be complicated, I didn't understand, but it's simple if you're there and they give you the instructions on what the crime is. Did he falsify documents? As simple as that. Did he lie? Your thoughts?
Well, I think going into what my panelists were saying, this also had to do with the court of public opinion. So when you had Michael Cohen, who went through Congress testimony, who went through his entire trial, I believe that a lot of the jurors, particularly juror number 5 that listens to the Breakfast Club every day, by the way, a lot of folks that went in already kind of had their own opinion of Donald Trump, just to be honest. I'm sure you guys would agree with me that even though jurors say, you know, I'm biased and I don't really have an opinion, they're still humans. They're not living under a rock. So there's already, when we talk about the jurisdiction of New York, there's already a certain opinion that people have of Donald Trump. We already had a chance to see Michael Cohen play that all out. So all of those things went into place. So although facts were important and the facts were still there, the court of public opinion with someone who's been charged 91 times and still 3 more cases and already lost the civil trial, I think people already had in their mind going in. And I don't mean that to say that it was corrupt, but I do believe in the court of public opinion plays a big part in it.
And Phil, when we talk about the jurors, they have remained anonymous. How important is it that their identities remain secret, especially when you think about Trump supporters who are out there?
Yeah, in this particular case, I think it's necessary because we've seen other individuals that have spoken out against Mr. Trump, and it has caused backlash, it's caused threats, it's caused potential harm to others. And so this way, at least the jurors were kept in a cocoon, if you would, as best they could, so they can just focus on their task at hand, and that was to evaluate the evidence, listen to the evidence, and come back with a verdict one way or another, rather than being intimidated. And I think you saw that there were a lot of people giving speeches. Even Mr. Trump would every day talk about the case, not singling out the jurors, but there's that intimidation factor, and the last thing you want to do is to intimidate a jury, because they're the people that are supposed to listen to the evidence and come up with a verdict and not be biased. And when you're intimidating somebody, well, that's what mobsters do. And I think, you know, the precedent, especially in New York, they have a rich history of prosecuting mobsters, and so this was the same way. Keep the jurors anonymous, let them do their jobs, and don't let them be harassed to the best of their ability.
All right, don't go anywhere. We'll continue this conversation with our guests after the break. Plus,
I think it's just a disgrace, and we'll keep fighting. We'll fight till the end, and we'll win, because our country's gone to hell. We don't have the same country anymore. We have a divided mess.
welcome back to The Factor. On since a historic day, former President Donald Trump is now the first U.S. president ever to be convicted of a crime. Today, a jury found him guilty on all 34 counts in a New York hush money case. Sentencing is currently set for July 11th. We continue our conversation with our guests. And Dr. Branham, let's begin with you now. First of all, many people are wondering, can he still run for president? If he wins, can he serve as president? And also, can he vote for himself? Your thoughts?
The answer is yes on all 3. He can still be president even if he's a convicted felon. There's nothing in the Constitution that stops him from being a president. The only thing that can stop him is for him to lose the election. And so I think the effect that you're going to see from this is less than a lot of people will think. I mean, there's a lot of people who think that he's finished because of this. I don't personally think he's finished at all. I've looked at the Stossel odds on the presidency. Before today, he was at 54% to be the next president. Now he's at 51%. So I don't think the impact is going to be very powerful. I mean, somebody like me, I thought the day that he insulted John McCain is, said he was a loser for being a prisoner of war while serving in the military of the United States. I thought he was done then. Wasn't even close. So his supporters are very strong behind him. I don't think he's going to lose many on this. As a matter of fact, I think a lot of people are going to be more riled and jacked up than ever to make sure that he becomes president again. So I think what this has done is it's created a atmosphere of drama throughout the whole country on this presidential election. And there's, in my opinion, there's way too much emotion going on here, and I think it's actually pretty dangerous. So I wish people would sit back, make rational decisions, and calmly go forward on this.
All right, what do you guys think?
I don't know if he's going to be able to vote for himself. If his conviction is final, which I doubt very seriously that it will be by the time the election comes along, because he has the right to appeal, so he can forestall the conviction. But if his conviction were final, no, he wouldn't be able to vote for himself in Texas. In Florida, where he lives, only God knows.
Well, he can't, well, if he applies for clemency in Florida.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. They have some reintegration laws that are great for formerly incarcerated persons that the president might be able to take advantage of.
For sure.
Something that I'm sure he would not lobby for might actually help him. But, the chief concern that I have is that we are so fractured and polarized as a nation that there are those who don't care. There was a time when the president said, I could kill someone in the middle of Times Square or something of that nature, and
who knew that would be true?
And sure enough, here we are. Here we are.
Well, all I do is politics, organize on the ground. I've worked Michigan as being Senator Bernie Sanders' racial justice director. So when it comes to politics, this really has to do with 7 states. 7 swing states will make the decision. So when you look at states like Michigan, that has a base completely split up. You have folks who are saying ceasefire, who are committed to not voting. You have the college students in Michigan who are saying we want to relieve college debt and we want you to have ceasefire. You have Detroit, one of the blackest cities in the country, that also have voter apathy at this time. You have the labor union, who is half of them are with Joe Biden, half of them are with not. So my concern, and when we talk about getting out the vote, which is the most important thing, all of the states, everybody can talk and yell. When it really comes down to it, it's those 7 states. And so it's not so much about if Donald Trump was convicted, it is really about how those particular states are voting. And Michigan is a state where Joe Biden has to be concerned, not because of what happened with Trump, but because of all the issues that he has at his table. Anytime you have 100,000 people who are going to the polls, putting on their clothes and saying we are voting no commitment like they did in Michigan, that's a problem.
All right, Phil, go ahead, Phil.
Yeah, no. Just what I was going to say is what really concerns me is when you listen to the statement of Mr. Trump just a few minutes ago, he is minimizing the rule of law. Whether you agree with the verdict or not agree with the verdict, this jury did its job, and there's a rule of law, and we should all celebrate that at least the justice system has held. You may not agree with the verdict, you may not agree what has happened, but the rule of law is intact. And what I'm afraid of over the next few months is that they're going to minimize this trial, they're going to minimize the conviction, and they're going to minimize the rule of law. And it is going to have a profound effect for every judge, every court, every prosecutor, every defense attorney in this country. The world looks to the United States because of the rule of law that we have, and it is being eroded to an extent that I don't know if we can ever fully recover from it.
All right, we want to thank you all for joining us. We appreciate your expertise here on The Factor Uncensored tonight.